Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to Wake Up, Look Up, a podcast where we connect events happening in real time to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Zach Wyrock, and this episode we're asking the question, is this missing from your prayer life? And the this in that question is what's going on with Christians around the world. I'm focusing in particular with something that's been in the news this week that's happening in Syria, a country that has just undergone a major coup against the al-Assad regime, not a very popular, at least on the international stage, regime that has now been overthrown by an organization that is led by Islamic leaders. In Syria, a country where there are 200 to 600,000 Christians, this is leading to a state where Christians aren't really sure where they land. On the one hand, the terrorist organization that has overthrown the al-Assad regime is known for a history of violence towards anyone who's not Muslim. I use the word terrorist organization because the United States and others have labeled this new group a terrorist organization. At least from the perspective of the West, they are a group that vilifies anyone that doesn't share their religion and will pursue violence towards them. However, the new group that's come into power in Syria is saying, hey, that's who we used to be. In fact, their leader is saying, I'm reformed. I used to be that, but now I'm more open-minded and tolerant. They're promising that things will be good for Christians, that they can worship and practice Christianity along with Muslims who practice Islam. Are they telling the truth? Who knows? Especially Syrian Christians who are on the edge of their seat wondering, should they leave their country and seek safety because this group is lying and will eventually crack down on Christians, or should they take them at their word and stay, particularly desiring to be an influence and witness in a country where there is not that much gospel presence? That's a real problem. I can't even imagine sitting at the dining room table with my wife trying to decide between leaving the country for the safety of our family or sticking it out for the good of the gospel. That's a real problem. And I use the words real problem because sometimes in America, I'm tempted to think I have real problems. I haven't experienced anything like this, which is why among all the other things I'm praying for God's provision and blessing for my own family and friends and church, I need to make sure I'm adding in prayers for Christians in Syria and in other situations around the world. The book of Ephesians, chapter 6, tells us to pray all the time for other believers in all places. And that's something that if you're like me, you probably fall behind pretty regularly in doing. So I want to encourage you towards a couple of things. Number one, can we make our immediate reaction to headlines prayer? When I see an article about Syrian Christians, I should click on it, read it, and turn that into a prayer. I wonder how often we interpret the news in light of ourselves, in light of our political bias, in light of the candidate of our choosing, instead of reading it through the lens of the gospel. Our hearts breaking for our brothers and sisters in Syria and our desire for God to protect them and bless them and for the gospel to flourish. Let's develop the reaction to reading international news with an eye to how we can be praying. The other thing is, if you have kids, this is a great opportunity to teach them about the world and about how big the church is. Get a globe, put it in your dining room, spin it, and stop on a country and pray for the Christians there. Bring a headline like this if your kids are older to the dining room table and talk about how hard it must be to follow Jesus in Syria and in other places. Develop in your kids a heart for the nations and for the gospel to advance in a country where kids are growing up with heroes who are social media influencers and musicians and ball players. Maybe we could raise a generation of kids who at least add to that the heroes who are living out their faith in hostile countries, who are taking the gospel into places where it is dangerous. Listen, we're in a season where you're probably thinking about the new year and the new you and how you're going to change. Let's all commit to making 2025 a year of intentional prayer for our brothers and sisters in Syria and around the world, that God would keep them safe, that God would bless them, and that the gospel would advance. Hey, thanks so much for watching this episode of Wake Up, Look Up. While you're here, take a minute to like and subscribe. Really helps us get the word out. Don't hesitate to leave a review wherever you might find this podcast on an audio level and help spread the word. And hey, while you're here, check out all the other content we have at Christ Community Chapel on YouTube. Some of those videos are popping up on the screen now. Click on one.